the screen, Quranic stories unfold. On the screen, Quranic stories unfold. Wisdom and lessons in each tale told. Wisdom and lessons in each tale told.
Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidil Anbiya'i wal Mursaleen ma ba'ad. Fa'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. As-salatu wassalamu alayka ya Rasulullah wa ala alika wa ashabika ya Habiballah. As-salatu wassalamu alayka ya Nabiyallah wa ala alika wa ashabika ya Nurullah. Welcome back to our series Quranic Stories. Insha'Allah ta'ala, today we will be discussing one of the most greatest prophets that has ever come to earth. Every prophet is immaculate. Every prophet had their own specialities. 4 men in history that ruled the entire world. 2 of them were believers. 2 of them were non-believers. From the believers, one was called Dhul Qarnayn, that individual mentioned in Surah Kahf, who embarked on a journey with Hazrat Khidr alayhi salam, who was also his cousin. He was a non-prophet. According to consensus of scholars, he was a non-prophet. However, the other king of the world, Suleman alayhi salam, he was the son of Dawood. He was also such a king who ruled the entire world. Wherever there was a nation, Suleman alayhi salam ruled that nation. And then you had the 2 non-believers. One of them was Nimrud. And then you had an individual called Bakht Nasr. He was a very cruel individual. Suleman alayhi salam, the son of Dawood alayhi salam, very powerful, very authoritative prophet he was. He had control of animals, he had control of jinns, he had control of birds. Suleman alayhi salam, his authority and his kingdom was not an average kingdom. One of the amazing stories of Suleman alayhi salam's life was that Suleman alayhi salam was with his army, a grand army, a very powerful army. Such an army uniqueness was such that it had aerial communication. He would be able to see, he would have a bird actually in the sky who would report back to him of certain things taking place. He would have jinns who would construct for him, and he was walking, and there's a difference of opinion where this incident actually took place. But as he was walking on the other side, around 3 miles away from this army and the direction of the army, 3 miles away, there was a colony of ants. The queen ant has authority over the entire colony of ants. Queen ant makes this announcement, which was a warning to every single ant in the colony to get back inside your home, because the army of Suleiman is coming this way and they may end up crushing us if we are not careful. Because we are so small, they may not be able to see us, and because of that they'll crush us under their feet. So all the ants went back inside their colonies, went back inside their burrows. Suleiman alayhi salam was gifted the strength. He was given this ability to hear what that ant reported or signaled to the rest of the colony. And he smiled. Queen ant said, she said,
حتى إذا أتوا على واد النمل قالت نملة يا أيها النمل ادخلوا مساكنكم لا يحطمنكم سليمان وجنوده وهم لا يشعرون.
Until when they came to the valley of the ants, an ant proclaimed, "O ants, enter your homes. Suleiman and his armies may not crush you unknowingly."
This was what the queen ant mentioned to the rest of the colony. The queen ant says to the colony, enter into your burrows. Maybe whilst they are on their way, they end up crushing you under their feet.
فتبسم ضاحكا من قولها وقال رب أوزعني أن أشكر نعمتك التي أنعمت علي وعلى والدي وأن أعمل صالحا ترضاه وأدخلني برحمتك في عبادك الصالحين.
He, Suleiman, therefore smilingly laughed at her speech and submitted, O my Lord, enable me that I thank you for the favor which you have bestowed upon me and my parents, and so that I may perform such a good deed which pleases you, and by your mercy include me amongst your bondsmen who are worthy of your special proximity.
He smiled and then he showed his appreciation. He thanked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for this faculty, this blessing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him. He was able to communicate with animals. He was able to communicate from aerial birds. He was a king, a very powerful king. He was able to command the winds to do his tasks. He was able to command the jinns to do his task. He was literally a prophet, a righteous person, and he was the king of the world. And they were walking once, and whenever he would walk with his army, huge entourage, and the Quran describes his army.
وحشر لسليمان جنوده من الجن والإنس والطير فهم يوزعون.
And assembled together for Suleiman were his armies of jinn and men and of birds. Hence they used to be held back.
That we gathered for Suleiman, his army, which was formed of jinn, human, birds, and they were well organized. Subhanallah. His army was, if you take a modern army, you have certain departments within the army. You have the aerial part of the army, those fighter jets, you have drones, you have satellites, right? You have submarines, ships, you have soldiers on land, you have different forms of transport on land. Army is constructed of various different strengths, and they all have to be working together in this synchronized, organized manner. And Suleiman alayhi salam in ancient times had it all. He had birds in the skies that would report to him, give him information, a bit like satellites, a bit like drones. The jinns, we know from other stories that his jinns were able to go to the bottom of the oceans and pick out various different things like the oceanic dome. His jinns were able to create anything at any time, massive buildings, unique buildings. And we'll come to that towards the end of this episode. And likewise his army on land as well, very powerful. We're going to discuss how powerful that army was, subhanAllah. Suleiman alayhi salam was walking with his army, his massive, formed, organized army, and he says that, what's the matter? Where is the hudhud? Hudhud was his bird that would fly in the sky and give him information. And specifically, whilst they were walking, they needed information from the bird of where there is a water source. And Suleiman alayhi salam was, because his army is in formation, and for the formation of his army, anything that is out of organization, Suleiman alayhi salam will punish that, because the army has to be well formed. He says, what is the matter? I haven't seen the hudhud in a while. It's been absent. And then he says that it must come back with appropriate reason for why it has been absent. Otherwise, Suleiman alayhi salam was going to discipline his hudhud. They needed to find out where the water source was, and he would have commanded the jinns to dig a well straight under for us to extract the water and utilize that water. The Hudhud came back with information. The Hudhud came back with information, vital information to Suleiman alayhi salam, he says. And the Hudhud says to Suleiman alayhi salam, apologies for being absent. However, I have some very interesting information. He says there is a queen called Bilqis. She has a huge throne. She is the queen of a nation. And that nation is worshipping the sun, worshipping the stars, worshipping the moon, worshipping all these celestial objects. And because of this, it has deterred her from believing in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And to Suleiman alayhi salam, being a king, being a powerful prophet, it was his duty to go and teach the queen Bilqis the right thing. Or what did he need to teach her? He needed to teach her monotheism. So Suleiman alayhi salam says to the Hudhud that we will soon find out if you are telling the truth or you are lying. So Suleiman alayhi salam, he writes a letter to the queen of Bilqis, and in the letter he gave a message of monotheism and that he is a prophet and you must come and be under my rulership. Subhanallah, you must be under my authority. And he sealed the letter and stamped it as a king would do. And he said to the Hudhud, okay, go deliver this message to the queen. Delivered the message. The queen opened and said that this is an honorable letter because of the stamp. She seen the stamp. Honorable. She opened it, she accepted it. And what she done, she was very clever. She was a very wise queen. And she said to her ministers and her advisors that what should we do? They said, look, we are powerful enough to go into war, but whatever you think is best. And she said that no, we shouldn't go into war, because whenever someone goes in war, what happens is the actual people that have beef, the people that have a clash, the people who are against each other, they survive, and the people that had nothing to do with it, they suffer the consequences of our battle. So it is never a good idea to go into war. That was what she said. So she done something more tactical. She sent a huge entourage of gifts towards Suleiman alayhi salam and said to herself that if he is a true prophet, he will reject these gifts, because a prophet doesn't want to do anything with the dunya, and his message of monotheism would be 100% true, and that's the only thing he would want. But if he accepts these gifts, then that will give us a hint that he is not a prophet. So when these gifts came, Suleiman alayhi salam rejected them, and he prepared his army and said to the army, take all these gifts back and say to them to surrender, ask them to surrender. The gifts were taken back by the army, and Bilqis realized that okay, he hasn't accepted these gifts, therefore he must be a prophet. And she says, no, there's no need for an army to come. We will go and visit him ourselves. We will surrender to him. She was going to surrender because she knew there's no way we're going to win a prophet with all this strength that she had already seen by the Hudhud, by the army, and what she was about to see next. So while she was on the way to see Suleiman alayhi salam, to visit him for the first time, Suleiman alayhi salam, he says to his ministers and his people that who will bring me her arsh the fastest. And one jinn stands up and says, I can bring you this arsh the time it takes for you to stand up. You know, the duration it takes for an individual to stand up from his chair, from his seat. I'll bring you this arsh quick as that. Suleiman alayhi salam says, no, I need it to come faster than that. Asif bin Barkhia, his minister, his minister, he says that, O Suleiman, I will bring this arsh to you prior, or in less time than it takes to blink. In the blink of an eyelid, I will bring you this arsh. And he does so as well. He brings the arsh to Suleiman alayhi salam in less than the duration of an eye blink, the time it takes to blink. Now, when the throne came, Suleiman alayhi salam, the story is quite detailed, but Suleiman alayhi salam needed to kind of understand who Bilqis was, needed to lay down some bait, try to work out her mindset. And what he done, he disfigured it, make it look very different to her original arsh. He brought the arsh, disfigured it, and by that time Bilqis came. When Bilqis came, Suleiman alayhi salam basically asked her, do you recognize this arsh? She says, and the test was that if she recognizes it, then she is a very wise individual, and if she doesn't, then there's something not right. And this was his investigation, his curiosity, that is she a wise individual or isn't she? So she recognized the arsh and she said, it doesn't look like mine, but it is mine. That was the first test that Suleiman done against her, and she kind of proved herself. Suleiman alayhi salam told his jinns, told his army to create a courtyard. And in this courtyard there was this something that was very, very unique to that time. The floor of the courtyard was made from highly transparent glass, which was a material which was unheard of back then. And underneath the glass there was, it seemed as if there was a river, and in the river there were fishes. And Suleiman alayhi salam was sat on the other end of the courtyard, and he said to Bilqis, come towards me. And by optics it seems as if, and they've never seen glass before, but by optics or visuals, she raised her garment, lower garment, so her garment doesn't get wet. And when she stepped on what she thought was a small pond, it turned out to be some hard structure, glass. And then Suleiman alayhi salam explained, and then she suddenly just lowered her garment completely in shock. And then she came and submitted and surrendered and said, I believe in yourself, I understand your strength, your capabilities, there was no way I would have gone against you. Suleiman alayhi salam brought her back onto the religion of monotheism. She surrendered. Her army therefore became part of Suleiman alayhi salam's army. This was the meeting of a king and a queen together. And the story is, there has more detail, but it's the outline of the story given in the Quran. Another part of Suleiman alayhi salam's life is mentioned in the Quran, glimpses of this story, various different parts of the story, but not the complete story. Suleiman alayhi salam, he had control over the jinns, and the jinns would construct for him large buildings. And one of the most important buildings Suleiman alayhi salam ever had constructed was what we know as the Temple of Solomon, i.e. Baytul Muqaddas. Baytul Muqaddas was formed on the place of Musa alayhi salam, where Musa alayhi salam placed his tent. And Masjid al-Aqsa was formed there, and Suleiman alayhi salam made Masjid al-Aqsa, well, he commanded the jinns to make Masjid al-Aqsa brick by brick in that exact place, location where Musa alayhi salam laid his tent. And this was what we know as the Temple of Solomon. And then after that, the Ottoman, various things happen in history, but the Masjid al-Aqsa and that location is that Suleiman alayhi salam was the first one to lay down the foundations of Masjid al-Aqsa. It's quite an interesting story. Suleiman alayhi salam, it was usual for him to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala such that he would spend full days in one single prayer. Full days. And in this specific incident where they were constructing the foundations of Masjid al-Aqsa, the jinns, Suleiman alayhi salam went into the mihrab, a certain portion of that vicinity, and he began to pray. This was normal, this was usual, there was nothing ajib about this. And he leaned on his staff to pray. He leaned on his staff to pray, and as he started his salah, he actually passed away in that state, in the vicinity of Al-Aqsa. And the jinns continued to construct believing that Suleiman alayhi salam was alive. And it was usual for him to be in qiyam position for a long period of time. They were used to that. It was nothing out of the norm. It was absolutely usual that Suleiman alayhi salam would stand for ages in qiyam. And small insects ate away at the staff of Suleiman alayhi salam, which eventually weakened and then fell. And it fell at the same time as the jinns had completed the construction of Masjid al-Aqsa. And that was not only the demise of Suleiman alayhi salam, but also the beginning of the foundations of Masjid al-Aqsa, which was formed. This was a basic outline of some of the stories of the Quran regarding Suleiman alayhi salam. There are more points and more stories of Suleiman alayhi salam, more aspects of his life, a very, very majestic prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, an authority. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala granted him a kingdom and has never granted anyone a kingdom such like that he gave to Suleiman alayhi salam. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us understanding. May He allow us to take blessings from understanding the life of Suleiman alayhi salam. Ameen. Bijahi Nabi Ameen. Sallu ala al-Habib. Sallallahu ala Muhammad. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.
On the screen, Quranic stories unfold. On the screen, Quranic stories unfold. Wisdom and lessons in